As many of you know, Kanye is engaged in a legal happening with Sony and other derivatives in the hopes of him retrieving his masters. So to speak about Ye's lawsuit, I'd like to mention some characteristics about Ye that I found very interesting. So personally, I think the whole "I am a Nat Turner fighting to free the music slaves," as seen in his tweets comparing himself to the likes of Nat Turner, isn't an honest depiction of the story. It's in my interpretation that Kanye is merely fighting to get his masters back for a contract that was unfair. But maybe this selfish motivation could lead to a positive outcome, but I'm doubtful to that regard. If anything, I think this should springboard into a greater conversation, like how predatory contracts in the music industry should be rescinded by a court of law. For this, I'm reminded of the 2008 US financial crisis. Not to delve too deeply into the event, essentially one of the reasons why the economy tanked was due to a bubble in the real estate and housing markets. There was a practice which was predatory, and that was literally predatory lending, that imposed unfair or abusive loan terms on borrowers. And this would surely enough result in borrowers not being able to pay back loans, and ultimately their financial standings were ruined. And as a result, Congress would go on to pass various regulations to this type of behavior, such as Dodd-Frank's Title 14, also known as the Mortgage Reform and Anti-Predatory Lending Act. There needs to be something analogous in the music industry towards the labels and distributors. The labels need to be held accountable for their contracts, and they must be ridiculed with a question like, by what means is this specific label's contract predatory? Or simply enough, is this contract fair and or realistic? Which, maybe you should have a lawyer with you, a lawyer that's not from the label, helping you, try to read the contract you're signing. I would also like to mention a conversation that I had with RIAA's Chief Content Protection and Vice, Brad Buckles, about a year and a half ago, and he mentioned something interesting about trust laws and how there are certain rules that prevent music distributors from cooperating. And I'd like to levy the claim, and this is a claim, I don't want to be sued or anything, I'm just thinking out loud, I don't have any solid evidence, right? I'd like to levy the claim that the music industry itself, from labels and derivatives of music and IP distributors, effectually serve as an oligopoly, where they are in cahoots with one another. I am under the impression that this form of tacit collusion happens between third-party so-called non-profits that act as derivatives. It is these groups that work with one another as intermediaries between music distributors and labels such as Universal Music Group, Columbia, EMI, Warner Music Group, etc. And they are effectually creating some sort of music oligopoly. I'm not sure by what means this could be proved, perhaps checking to see who funds nonprofits and how they affiliate themselves. A question could be asked if there is a conflict of interest of some sort. For example, and I only say this as an example, don't get any idea, IFPI, the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, something like that, could have a founder, or could have a funder rather, who was a chairman of, let's say, UMG, or and again, I don't want to get sued, that part is very much so conjecture. So yeah, I think these are interesting questions to ask. And if Kanye really wants to be the Nat Turner of the music industry, hopefully he, if he ever gets his masters back, hopefully there's a springboard into that greater conversation, what we can do, what laws we can put into place to prevent predatory contracts. I think that would be important. So yeah, that's pretty much it.